With Kevin Dotson getting traded yesterday, essentially the Pittsburgh Steelers 53-man roster has basically sorted itself out and now becomes set. That's what we're going to cover in today's episode, what the 53-man roster ultimately is going to believe to be and what we got out of the Dotson trade. So let's start with the Dotson trade itself. With the Rams, we essentially swapped our 4th round picks coming up this year, which makes logical sense, probably jumping up around 20 picks or so, to have one of the first picks of the 4th round next year. And then for the following year, we got their 5th at an exchange of our 6th. So that was the trade overall for Dotson. And what I'm going to go through now, how a 53-man roster is constructed with the Steelers and what it ultimately will end up looking like. So 53, we start with the 3 specialists, the kicker, the punter, and the long snapper, and boom, you're down to 50. Steelers historically then divided 25-25 for offense and defense. So the one thing we know about Mike Tomlin is that he is never having a team without 3 quarterbacks after the Duck saga. That was gross, that was disgusting, and we're not going to do it. So therefore, Mitch and Rudolph are both going to be on this team by default. We have 3 running backs that are NFL worthy to be on this team in Najee, Warren, and McFarland. Those 3 on the team. There are 4 tight ends that will be on the team. Yes, I'm counting Connor Hayward as a tight end in this scenario. So obviously Freiermuth, Matt Washington, Gentry, Connor Hayward, 4 tight ends. Now you're up to 10 players, and you have offensive linemen left, and you have your wide receivers left. There are 5 receivers that you know for a fact that are on this team. Deontay, Pickens, Calvin Austin, Robinson, and Boykin are all on this team without a doubt. The question then becomes, do the Steelers put on a 6th wide receiver and can go with 9 offensive linemen, or do they go with 10 offensive linemen and 5 receivers? So we know the starting offensive line from left to right is going to be Moore, Salomalo, Cole, James Daniels, and then Shooks on the right tackle. That's a given. So we did know the next 2 up are going to be Herbig and Broderick Jones. Now we're at 7. Unfortunately, I think Kendrick Green is 8. And that means he's making the team. And Spencer Anderson has legitimately made this team as well. He might even be 8. But either way, if they bring 9 on, Spencer Anderson and Green both make the team. But that does leave 1 extra of the 25 offensive spots remaining. That's basically going to come down to LeRaven Clark, the guy that we brought in from Tennessee, who was their swing tackle last year, or Gunnar Olszewski. And Steelers Nation, I am so sad to say, I don't think the Steelers are going to keep 10 offensive line. I think Gunnar's going to be back. It does not warm my heart. It does not fill my joy, but they're going to keep the 6th wide receiver, in my opinion, the 9 offensive linemen, 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and 4 tight ends. That's what I believe the offensive side of the depth chart is going to look like. When we go to the defense, the exact same drill is applicable. Got to get the 25 people. So I believe when it's all said and done, the defensive line is going to end up having 6. And the reason I think it's going to be 6 is because there are no doubt 6 worthy players here. Starting at the nose tackle, that's going to be Benton Adams. Not everyone has both of them making the team, and just Benton, I do believe Benton and Adams are solidly on this. And then as far as your tackles, Ogunjobi, Leal, obviously Cam, and Loudermilk. So that's 6 up front right there. Your 4 outside linebackers, Golden has cemented himself on this roster. So it's going to be TJ, Marcus Golden, Highsmith, and Herbig. Not really anything crazy there. They're going to keep 4 inside linebackers. The 3 we just brought in Alexander, Holcomb, and Roberts. And then I do believe that Mark Robinson does live to fight another day. Whether or not he'll be getting a hat on game day will be a different question. So there's 4 middle linebackers, 4 outside linebackers, 6 linemen. You're at 14 players, which gives you 11 for your secondary. And this is where it can get a little, how are we doing the 11 breakup? I believe that there's going to be 5 corners when it's all said and done, which would be Wallace, Pierre on the left, on the right being Porter, and then your 2 slots being Peterson and Chandon Sullivan. I don't like Chandon Sullivan's game, but I think that that's how it's ultimately going to shape out when we see the draft, when we see the roster come out tomorrow. That Chandon Sullivan will be your only true slot on the team, but when push comes to sub, I believe Peterson's going to be the one who does it more often than not. Which then leaves 6 safeties on this roster, which is really kind of an absurd number until you realize they're basically all your special team guys. So your 2 starters, Minkah and KZ, obviously. Neal, we didn't see a whole lot of him during the preseason, but he's on this roster. I do believe that Kenny Robinson has jumped both Killebrew and Norwood, but because I think there's going to be 6 of them that make the team, Killebrew and Norwood slide onto the back end of the roster again. So at the end of the day, Steelers Nation, that's what I believe the roster will be when it's all cobbled together. Maybe Norwood doesn't make it and they keep a 6th corner, but I think at the end of the day, they're going to go 5 corners, 6 safeties, knowing that both Neal and Minkah can play a coverage role as a corner if need be. So I think that when we look at the roster, by trading Dotson, it took a lot off of this. And when it got actually down to doing push to shove, this wasn't as difficult of an exercise as I really thought it would have been when we were sitting here really at the end of the draft. I thought that this would have been a much, much harder thing, but this is definitely a much stronger roster than we have had in years. Quincy Roche was on every single special team last year. He's not going to be on the field. He didn't make the team. And just to give you one example of something, why is he here? Like I said, unfortunately, I think Gunner still makes the team. I don't think it's going to be a very stable spot. If I were Gunnar Olszewski being the last person in on offense, I would really be concerned about someone else cutting a wide receiver and Gunner technically making the team on Tuesday but not being here on Wednesday, as is often the case around the NFL. And when we look at this, there's talented players that we're going to be leaving and putting out there. But it's also not like we're cutting James Harrison either. Braden Fiocco, he's a nice story. He's not the second coming of Joe Green, guys. So when I look at everything overall, this roster is stacked. Steelers Nation, you just heard my 53-man roster. Let me know if there's anyone you disagree with or that you think I could spot on, who you would like to see being a guaranteed no doubt on the 45-man roster, someone who's not a starter that you would like to see in over someone else who gets a special team role. I'm talking about a situation where it could be maybe Keanu Neal's not getting a hat over Trey Norwood for special teams reasons. Like, say that sentence out loud and think it's not stupid. It's going to be a much harder decision not to do the 53-man roster, but to do the 45-man roster for game day. Well, now it's 46 if they dress Rudolph. So how are you going to take the 6 players and choose who not to give a hat to? And to me, that's the much more interesting question, and what we will be having a video on explicitly that, and how I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers overvalue special teams to the detriment of their game day roster. Steelers Nation, I love talking to you. We'll be with you again here next time. And as always, here we go, Steelers, here we go.